The blue-skinned alien pressed his long fingers against the communication console. His hands shook as he watched the final transport ship disappear into the star-filled darkness. Another colony world lost, another million of his people dead, or enslaved elder diplomat Vexton closed his 4 eyes and tried to calm his racing heart. The Zephrian people had lived in peace for over 3,000 years. They had built beautiful cities that floated among the clouds of their homeworld. They had created art that could make other species weep with joy. They had never hurt anyone. But peace meant nothing to the Krex Empire. The Krex were massive creatures with thick gray skin and teeth like broken glass. They moved through space in huge black ships that blocked out the stars. They took what they wanted and destroyed everything else. They had been moving through Zephrian space for 2 years now, leaving only ash and screams behind them. Elder Vexen, came a soft voice from behind him. He turned to see Quintel, the young scientist, who had been working on the deep space communication array. Her normally bright silver eyes were dim with exhaustion. The array is ready. We can send the message to every star system within 200 light years. Vexton nodded slowly. This was their last hope. The Zephrian military had tried to fight the Krex, but they were farmers and artists, not warriors. Their weapons were designed for stunning small animals, not stopping creatures that stood 3 meters tall and ate metal for breakfast. Are you sure about this, Elder? Quintel asked. Once we send out a distress call, every species in the galaxy will know. We are weak. Some might come to help us. Others might come to pick our bones clean. The old diplomat looked out at the stars through the observation window. Somewhere out there, Krex ships were moving toward their homeworld. Intelligence reports said they had maybe 6 months before the final assault began. 6 months before. The Krex would arrive at Kepler 4 for to be, and finish what they had started. We have no choice, Vexen said quietly. Send the message. Quintel moved to the controls. The communication array was the most powerful transmitter the Zephrians had ever built. It could send messages faster than light itself, reaching distant star systems in days instead of years. She had spent weeks encoding their plea for help. In every known galactic language. Message transmitting now, she announced. The array hummed to life, sending their desperate words racing across space. The message was simple. This is the Zephrian Republic. We are a peaceful people under attack by the Krex Empire. Our military cannot stop them. Our colonies are being destroyed. Our people are dying. Ask for help from any species that values life and peace. Please, if you can hear this, help us. 300 light years away, the human exploration vessel New Horizon drifted through the void between stars. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, drinking coffee from a metal cup that had seen better days. The ship was returning from a survey mission in the Outer Rim, where they had mapped 17 new star systems and found absolutely nothing. Interesting. Captain, called out Communications Officer Danny West from his station. I'm picking up something weird. It's not from Earth Command. Morrison set down his coffee and walked over to the communications console. The ship's bridge was small and cramped, designed for efficiency rather than comfort. 24 crew members called New Horizon home, and they had been in space for 8 months now. Kind of weird, Morrison asked. It's a distress signal. But it's not human. The computer is trying to translate it now. Danny's fingers moved across his controls, adjusting frequencies and running the signal through the ship's language processors. Got it. It's coming through now. The translated message played through the bridge speakers. Morrison listened carefully, his expression growing more serious with each word. When it finished, the bridge was silent except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Lead again, Morrison ordered as the message repeated. Other crew members began to gather on the bridge. Chief Engineer Lisa Parker wiped grease from her hands with a rag. Combat Specialist Ryan Cole looked up from the tactical display he had been studying. Dr. Amy Watson. The ship's xenobiologist rushed from her lab, still wearing her research gloves. Are those coordinates real? Morrison asked. Danny checked his readings. Yes, sir. The signal is coming from a star system about 40 light years from here. The computer identifies it as Kepler 442. Though we've never made contact with anyone from that region. Dr. Watson stepped forward. Captain, this could be huge. We're talking about first contact with not just one alien species, but possibly several. The message mentioned the Krex Empire, which means there are at least 2 different alien civilizations out there. Morrison nodded, but his military training made him think about the situation differently. Someone was attacking innocent people. Someone needed help. The details could be sorted out later. Lisa, how long would it take to reach their coordinates? He asked. The engineer consulted her tablet. About 3 days at maximum jump speed. But Captain, we're not equipped for a rescue mission. We're a survey ship, not a warship. We have weapons, Ryan pointed out. And we have Marines in the cargo bay. Morrison thought about the 16 Marines who were currently sleeping in the ship's lower deck. They were supposed to be along for planetary security, not space combat. But they were good soldiers, and soldiers helped people who needed help. Danny, get me Admiral Sullivan on the secure channel, Morrison ordered. Priority 1 transmission. Took 20 minutes for the message to reach Earth, and for the Admiral's response to come back. When Kate Sullivan's face appeared on the main screen, she looked tired, but alert. It was late night in Washington, but admirals didn't sleep much. Anyway, Captain Morrison, I've reviewed your report. This is unprecedented. First contact with hostile alien species. She paused, thinking. I'm authorizing you to respond to the distress call. Consider this humanity's first official diplomatic mission to another species. What are my orders, Admiral? Morrison asked. Help them. Use your best judgment. And Captain? Sullivan's expression became harder. If these Krex are attacking innocent people, show them why you don't mess with humans. The transmission ended, leaving Morrison with a ship full of excited crew members and a mission that could change human history forever. Danny, set course for Kepler, 442, Morrison ordered. Maximum speed. Lisa, I want our weapon systems checked. And ready? We don't know what we're flying into. Brian, wake up the Marines. Brief them on the situation. We might need them. Dr. Watson, start preparing first contact protocols. We're going to meet aliens, and we want to make a good impression. As the New Horizon turned toward the distant star system, Morrison looked out at the stars and wondered what they would find when they arrived. The Zephrians were expecting help, but they probably imagined negotiators and peacekeepers. They were about to meet humans. Instead, the ship jumped to faster than light speed, racing toward a meeting that would change the galaxy forever. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation, unaware that its children were about to announce humanity's presence to the universe in the most dramatic way possible in the depths of space. The Zephrian distress signal continued to spread outward, reaching other species who would read it and shake their heads sadly. Another civilization about to fall to the Krex. Another tragedy that no one could prevent. But humans had heard the call, and humans were coming. The Zephrians had asked for help. They had no idea what kind of help they were about to receive. The New Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the main screen as it showed their destination. The star was smaller than Earth's sun, and 3 planets orbited around it. The third planet was covered in thick white clouds that swirled in beautiful patterns. That's got to be their homeworld, Dr. Amy Watson said, pointing at the cloud-covered planet. The atmospheric readings match what we'd expect from the message. I'm detecting ships, Ryan Cole announced from the tactical station. Lots of them. They're not moving in attack patterns, but they're definitely military vessels. Morrison nodded. Open communications. Let's announce ourselves. Danny West worked at his station for a moment, then looked up. Channel open, Captain? On all frequencies. Morrison took a deep breath. This was it. Humanity's first words to another intelligent species. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel New Horizon. We received your distress signal and have come to help. Please, respond. The bridge fell silent as they waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. Finally, Danny's console chirped with an incoming transmission. Human vessel, this is Zephrian Defense Coordinator Thymus. We did not expect anyone to respond so quickly. Are you alone? Morrison exchanged glances with his crew. The aliens. Voice was strange, with a musical quality that made it sound like singing, but there was fear in it too. "We are one ship with 24 crew members," Morrison replied. "We came as soon as we received your message. What is your current situation?" There was a long pause before Thymus responded, "We would like to meet with you face to face. Can you come to our homeworld?" Dr. Watson stepped forward. "Captain, I should go. This is a first contact situation. We need to be careful about cultural protocols." "I'm coming too," Morrison said. "They asked for help and I need to understand what kind of help they need." 2 hours later, a small shuttle from the New Horizon descended through the thick clouds of Kepler 4-4b. Morrison piloted the craft while Dr. Watson sat beside him, reviewing everything they knew about Zephrian biology. Ryan Cole sat in the back, fully armed and ready for trouble. "Remember," Dr. Watson said as they broke through the clouds, "we don't know anything about their social customs. Let me handle the talking until we understand how they communicate." Below them, the Zephrian homeworld was nothing like Earth. Massive floating cities drifted among the clouds, held aloft by technology that seemed to defy gravity. The cities were beautiful, with curved towers that spiraled upward like frozen music. Gardens hung from every surface, filled with plants that glowed in soft blues and purples. "It's incredible," Dr. Watson whispered. "They've built paradise." Morrison was more practical. "It's also completely defenseless. No weapons platforms, no shields, no defensive positions." "How do they protect themselves?" "Maybe they never needed to," Ryan suggested. "Until now." They landed on a platform that extended from one of the floating cities. As they stepped out of the shuttle, Morrison got his first look at the Zephrians. They were tall and thin, with smooth blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Their heads were larger than human heads, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. They moved with fluid grace, like dancers. But what struck Morrison most was how afraid they looked. A group of Zephrians approached slowly. The one in front wore robes that changed color as he moved. When he spoke, his voice was the same musical tone they had heard over the radio. "I am Council Leader Thymus," he said, bowing deeply. "Welcome to our world. We're grateful that you have come to help us." Dr. Watson stepped forward and bowed in return. "I am Dr. Amy Watson, xenobiologist. This is Captain Jake Morrison, our military commander, and combat specialist Ryan Cole. We came as soon as we received your distress signal." Thymos looked at Morrison and Ryan, and his 4 eyes widened with what looked like shock. "Military commander? Combat specialist? We... ... We were hoping for diplomats, peace negotiators." Morrison frowned. "You said you were under attack?" "We brought military personnel because we thought you needed protection." "We do need protection," Thymos said. "Quickly, but we hoped. We thought other species would send mediators. People who could talk to the Kreks and convince them to stop." Dr. Watson looked confused. "Talk to them? After they've destroyed your colonies and killed your people?" Thymos led them through the city as they talked. The Zephrians they passed stopped to stare at the humans, their 4 eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Morrison noticed that many of them backed away when they saw him and Ryan. "We are a peaceful people," Thymos explained. "We have never fought a war. We solve our problems through discussion and compromise. We believed that if we could just communicate with the Kreks, explain our situation, they would understand and leave us alone." Ryan looked at Morrison with an expression that clearly said these people are crazy. Morrison kept his face neutral, but he was thinking the same thing. "Council Leader Morrison said carefully, how many of your people have the Kreks killed?" Thymos stopped walking. His skin color shifted from blue to a darker purple. "Over 2 million. They destroyed 4 of our colony worlds completely. The survivors. The survivors told us terrible stories. And you still think you can talk to them?" Ryan asked, his voice harder than he intended. Dr. Watson shot him a warning look, but the damage was done. Thymos took a step back, his 4 eyes fixed on Ryan's face. "Your species has very aggressive features," Thymos said quietly. "Forward-facing eyes, visible teeth. You carry weapons openly. Are you... ... Are you predators?" The question hung in the air like a bomb, Dr. Watson looked at Morrison, unsure how to answer. Technically, humans were omnivores, but their evolution had definitely been shaped by hunting. We eat plants and animals, Morrison said finally. We evolved to be able to defend ourselves and hunt for food. Does that frighten you? Thymus was quiet for a long moment. We eat only plants. We've never killed another living creature. The concept of deliberately taking life is difficult for us to understand. They reached a large building that seemed to be some kind of government center. Inside, more Zephrians waited. As the humans entered, Morrison heard gasps and whispers. Some of the aliens actually moved to the far side of the room. Council leader Dr. Watson said, "We want to help you, but we need to understand the situation better. Tell us about these Kreks. What do they want?" An older Zephrian stepped forward. Morrison recognized the voice as Elder Vexton, the one who had sent the distress signal. "They want our worlds, our resources. They take what they need and destroy everything else. They are like a disease that spreads through space." "Have you tried to negotiate with them?" Dr. Watson asked. "Many times," Vexton said sadly. "They do not listen. They do not care about our words. They only understand strength." Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of strength? Military strength? The ability to cause pain and death. They respect only violence. Vexton looked at Morrison with his 4 eyes. "Captain, what kind of world did you come from?" Morrison thought about Earth, about hurricanes and earthquakes, about predators and prey, about thousands of years of human warfare. "A dangerous one," he said simply. "How dangerous?" Thymus asked. Ryan answered before Morrison could stop him. "Dangerous enough that we had to learn to fight or die. Dangerous enough that we've been at war with ourselves for most of our history. Dangerous enough that we built weapons that could destroy our entire planet." The room fell completely silent. Several Zephrians made soft sounds that might have been fear or shock. Thymus stared at the humans with an expression that Morrison couldn't read. "You are from a death world," Thymus whispered. "We have heard legends about such places. Worlds so hostile that only the strongest species can survive. We thought they were myths." Dr. Watson tried to salvage the situation. "We're not monsters. We've learned to control our aggressive instincts. We use our strength to protect others, not to hurt them." "But you do hurt others," Vexton said, "when necessary." Morrison nodded. "When necessary? To protect innocent people? To stop those who would cause harm?" The aliens exchanged looks with each other. Morrison could see them having some kind of silent conversation with their expressions and body language. Finally, Thymus spoke. "Captain, Morrison, we asked for help. We did not expect your kind of help. We wanted diplomats and negotiators. Instead, you have sent us warriors from a death world. We sent you what you need," Morrison said firmly. "Not what you want. If the Kreks only understand strength, then strength is what we'll give them." The most looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "We may have made a terrible mistake, but it is too late to change course now. The Kreks fleet will arrive in less than 6 months. If talking will not stop them, then perhaps your way is the only way." As the humans were led to their quarters, Morrison couldn't shake the feeling that they had just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The Zephrians had called for help, but they had no idea what kind of help they were about to receive. And, somewhere in the darkness of space, the Kreks fleet moved closer to Kepler 44b. Unaware that their next target was now protected by creatures from a world that had taught them to fight or die. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the human quarters aboard the Zephrian city, staring out at the purple sunset. 3 days had passed since their arrival. He was beginning to understand just how different these two species really were. The Zephrians had given them beautiful rooms with walls that changed color based on their mood, but Morrison felt like he was living in a museum instead of a military base. "Dr. Amy." Watson knocked on his door and entered without waiting for permission. She looked frustrated, which was unusual for the normally calm scientist. "Jake, we have a problem," she said, sitting down in one of the floating chairs that the Zephrians used for furniture. "I've been studying their culture for 3 days, and I don't think they understand what war actually means. Morrison turned from the window. What do you mean? They think the Kreks are just bullies who need to be talked to firmly. They don't understand that some species are actually evil. They've never encountered true violence before. Watson pulled up a holographic display from her tablet. Look at this. Their entire military consists of 12 ships designed to rescue people from natural disasters. Their weapons are medical stun devices meant to calm frightened animals. Before Morrison could respond, Danny West's voice came through the communication system. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from an unknown source. It's not Zephrian. Morrison and Watson hurried to the temporary command center they had set up. In their quarters, the main screen showed a massive gray face with small black eyes and teeth that looked like broken metal. The creature's voice was deep and harsh like rocks grinding together. This is War Chief Brutus of the Kreks Empire, the alien growled. I speak to the pathetic creatures who dare to hide behind unknown allies. Your protectors cannot save you. In 4 months, our Grand Fleet will arrive at your world. You will surrender, or you will die. Your choice is meaningless. Your fate is sealed. The transmission ended, leaving the room in silence. Morrison felt a familiar feeling in his chest, the same feeling he got when someone threatened innocent. People, it was anger, but cold and controlled. Sir Ryan Cole said from the doorway, the Zephrians are asking for us to come to their council chamber. They want to discuss the message. Morrison nodded and followed Ryan through the floating city. The Zephrians they passed looked terrified. Many of them were making soft singing sounds that Dr. Watson had explained was how they showed fear in the council chamber. Dymas and the other Zephorian leaders were gathered around a curved table that seemed to be made of living crystal. Elder Vexton was speaking in rapid musical tones to the others, but he stopped when the humans entered. Captain Morrison, Thymus said, we have heard from the Kreks. They refuse to negotiate. They say they will destroy our world in 4 months. Morrison sat down in the human-sized chair they had provided for him. What do you want to do about it? The question seemed to confuse the Zephrians. They looked at each other with their 4 eyes, having another one of their silent conversations. We hoped you might speak to them, Thymos said finally. Perhaps they will listen to your species. You are clearly warriors. They might respect you. Ryan made a sound that might have been a laugh. Council leader, with respect, the Kreks aren't going to listen to anyone. They're predators. They take what they want and kill everything else. But surely there must be some way to reach them, Elder Vexton said. Some common ground we can find. Dr. Watson leaned forward. Elder, I've been studying the reports from your colony worlds. The Kreks didn't just kill your people. They tortured them. They destroyed your art and culture for fun. They are not reasonable beings. The room fell silent again. Morrison could see the Zephrians struggling to understand concepts that were completely foreign to their peaceful nature. So what do we do? Thymos asked quietly. Morrison stood up. We stop them. How? Same way humans have always stopped bullies. We hit them so hard, they don't get back up. The Zephrians stared at him in shock. Thymos made a sound that was probably the equivalent of gasping. You want to fight them? Elder Vexton said. To kill them? If necessary, Morrison said simply. They made their choice when they decided to murder your people. Now they have to live with the consequences. Over the next few hours, Morrison and his crew began to do what humans did best. They turned a problem into a solution. While the Zephrians worried and discussed and sang their fears, the humans started planning. Staff Sergeant Mike Turner arrived from the New Horizon with a team of Marines. Morrison had called for them as soon as he realized what they were dealing with. Turner was a short, stocky man with scars on his hands and the kind of calm confidence that came from surviving real combat. Captain Turner said, saluting, Brought 8 of my best people. What's the situation? Morrison briefed him quickly, showing him the tactical reports they had gathered about the Kreks. Turner listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious as he learned about the enemy they would face. Sir, Turner said, when Morrison finished, these Kreks sound like they've never fought anyone who could fight back. They're used to attacking defenseless colonies and civilian populations. That's what I was thinking, Morrison agreed. There. Bullies who've gotten used to easy targets. Dr. Watson had been working with a young Zephrian scientist named Quintel to understand the history of the conflict. What they discovered was disturbing but not surprising. The Krex Empire has been expanding for over 50 years, Watson explained to the assembled human team. They've conquered dozens of worlds, but they always attack peaceful species. They've never fought a real war against someone who could defend themselves. Chief Engineer Lisa Parker had been studying the Zephrian technology with growing frustration. Their science is amazing, but it's all focused on creation and healing. They can grow buildings from seed pods and heal injuries with sound waves, but they can't build a decent weapon to save their lives. Then we'll have to teach them, Morrison said. The next morning, Morrison called a meeting with the Zephrian leadership. When they gathered in the council chamber, he was carrying a tablet with detailed plans. We've studied your situation, he said without preamble. The Krex fleet will arrive in 4 months. It gives us time to prepare, but we need to start immediately. Thymos looked nervous. Prepare for what? For war, Morrison said simply. The Krex are coming to destroy your world. We're going to stop them. But how? Elder Vex then asked. Ow! We have 12 rescue vessels. Morrison smiled, and several Zephrians shrank back from the expression. Humans, they were learning, had very scary smiles. We're going to use your planet, Morrison said. Kepler 4 for to be is a fortress. You just don't know it yet. He activated the tablet, showing a holographic display of their world. Your planet has constant storms in the upper atmosphere. Lightning strikes every few seconds. The cloud cover is so thick that visibility is nearly zero. The gravity is 20% stronger than Earth normal, and the atmospheric pressure changes rapidly with altitude. The Zephrians looked confused. Yes, that is why we live in floating cities. The surface is too dangerous. Exactly, Morrison said. Too dangerous for you. But humans grew up on a planet where everything was trying to kill us. What you call? Impossible conditions we call Tuesday. Lisa Parker stepped forward. Captain, if we can modify some of their technology, we can turn this entire planet into a trap. The Krex will expect an easy victory against a defenseless world. Instead, they'll find themselves fighting in conditions they can't handle. Ryan Cole was studying the tactical data. The Krex ships are big and slow. They're designed for intimidation, not maneuverability. In those storms with limited visibility, they'll be sitting ducks. Sergeant Turner nodded. And if we can get some of their people trained in basic combat, even simple guerrilla tactics, we can make this very expensive for them. Thymos looked at the humans with an expression that might have been awe or terror. You want to turn our beautiful world into a battlefield? We want to save your beautiful world, Morrison corrected. The Krex are coming whether we fight them or not. The only question is whether you'll still be alive when they leave. Dr. Watson had been quiet during the tactical discussion, but now she spoke up. Council leader, I know this is frightening, but Captain Morrison is right. The Krex will not stop. They will not negotiate. They will not show mercy. Fighting them is your only chance. Elder Vexen was quiet for a long moment. Need from us? Morrison's smile was sharp and dangerous. Everything. We need your technology, your people, your resources. And we need you to trust us to do what needs to be done. The old Zephrian looked at his fellow council members, then back at the humans. We're asking us to become something we are not. To learn violence and hatred? No, Morrison said firmly. We're asking you to learn to defend yourselves. There's a difference. Humans learned that difference a long time ago. Over the following days, the transformation began. Lisa Parker worked with Zephrian engineers to modify their weather control systems into defensive weapons. Ryan Cole started training volunteers in basic combat techniques. Sergeant Turner and his Marines began scouting the planet's surface for defensive positions. The Krex Grand Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. 200 massive black ships spread out in perfect formation, their hulls covered in spikes and weapon ports. War Chief Brutus stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher, watching the cloud-covered planet through the main display. Prepare the standard intimidation broadcast. Brutus growled to his communications officer. The Krex leader was 3 meters tall, with gray skin thick as armor plates. His teeth were metal implants designed to tear through bone and flesh. Scars covered his arms from countless battles against defenseless prey. War Chief, his tactical officer reported, "We are detecting unusual atmospheric disturbances around the planet. The storm activity is much higher than our previous scans indicated." Brutus made a sound that was the Krex equivalent of laughter. "Let them hide in their storms. It will only delay their death by a few hours." On the surface of Kepler 440b, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the command center that Chief Engineer Lisa Parker had built inside one of the floating cities. The room was filled with displays showing the planet's weather patterns, defensive positions, and the locations of every human and trained Zephrian fighter. "Krex fleet has arrived," reported Danny West from his communications station. "At 200 ships, just like our intelligence predicted." Morrison nodded. 4 months of preparation had led to this moment. The peaceful floating cities had been transformed into fortress positions. The Zephrian weather control systems had been converted into weapons that could call down lightning strikes with pinpoint accuracy. And scattered across the planet's dangerous surface, small teams of humans and Zephrians waited in hidden positions. Sir Ryan Cole called from the tactical display. "They're broadcasting the standard surrender demand." "Let them talk, Morrison," said Lisa. "Are the weather modifications ready?" Lisa Parker checked her instruments. "All systems online, Captain. We can create atmospheric conditions that will make their sensors useless and their ships handle like rocks in a hurricane." The Krex broadcast filled the command center with War Chief Brutus's harsh voice. "Pathetic creatures of the cloud world, your time of hiding is over. Surrender now, and some of you may live as slaves. Resist, and we will burn your world to ash." Morrison picked up the communication device. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Defense Force. Your ships are not welcome here. Leave now, or face the consequences." The communication channel was quiet for several seconds. Then Brutus's voice came back, filled with what sounded like amusement. "Humans, we have heard rumors of your species. Deathworlders who think they are warriors. You are far from your home. Little predators, you cannot protect these weak plant hitters." "We'll see about that," Morrison replied, then cut the channel. The Krex fleet began its approach to the planet. The ships moved in the standard Krex formation, designed to create maximum fear in their victims. They had used this same approach on dozens of worlds, and it had always worked perfectly. But as they entered the planet's upper atmosphere, things began to go wrong. Lisa Parker activated the weather control systems. Massive storm clouds began to form around the Krex fleet, crackling with lightning and filled with winds that reached 500 kilometers per hour. The thick clouds reduced visibility to nearly zero. "What is this?" Brutus roared as his flagship was suddenly surrounded by a hurricane that seemed to come from nowhere. "Where are these storms coming from?" His tactical officer was frantically checking his instruments. "War Chief, our sensors cannot penetrate these clouds. The atmospheric interference is blocking everything." On the surface, Sergeant Mike Turner watched through high-powered scopes as the Krex ships struggled with the artificial storms. The massive vessels were designed for space combat, not atmospheric flight. In the hurricane force winds, they moved like drunk giants. "All teams, this is Turner." He spoke into his radio. Begin Phase 2. Begin Phase 2. Hidden positions across the planet opened fire. Not with traditional weapons, but with modified Zephrian technology that the humans had turned into instruments of war. Sonic cannons that could shatter metal. Gravity manipulators that could crush ship hulls. Most terrifying of all, the lightning collars that could direct the planet's natural electrical storms with deadly precision. The first Krex ship to be hit was the destroyer Skullhammer. A bolt of controlled lightning, guided by human targeting systems, struck its main engine. The ship spun out of control and crashed into the stormy seas below. "Impossible," Brutus screamed. "How are they controlling the weather?" War Chief Brutus had commanded the Krex fleet for 20 years. He had destroyed civilizations and enslaved entire species. but he had never fought an enemy that used the planet itself as a weapon, Major. Alex Thompson coordinated the surface defenses from a hidden bunker built into a mountain that the Zephrians had thought was uninhabitable. The humans had discovered that with proper equipment, even the most dangerous parts of Kepler 442b could be turned into defensive positions. Thompson to Morrison, he reported over the secure channel. Enemy formation is breaking up. It can't maintain formation in these conditions. Morrison smiled grimly, just like we planned. The Kreks are used to fighting in open space where their size gives them an advantage. In atmospheric combat, especially in storm conditions, their ships are too big and slow. The Kreks tried to adapt. War Chief Brutus ordered his ships to spread out and attack individual targets. But the humans had prepared for this too. Dr. Amy Watson worked alongside. Combat medic Sarah Kim in a field hospital they had set up in one of the floating cities. As the battle raged around them, they treated both human and Zephrian wounded. With equal efficiency, Dr. Sarah said as she bandaged a Zephrian pilot who had been injured in a crash landing. The Zephrians are starting to understand what we've been trying to teach them. Watson looked up from the human marine she was treating. Through the hospital windows, she could see Zephrian pilots flying their small rescue ships through the storm, using their superior knowledge of atmospheric flight to guide human weapons. Teams to their targets? They're learning that sometimes violence is the only way to protect what you love, Watson said sadly. I just hope they don't lose who they are in the process. The battle raged for 6 hours. Accustomed to quick victories against helpless opponents, found themselves trapped in a nightmare of storms, lightning, and guerrilla attacks. Their massive ships, designed to intimidate through size and firepower, became liabilities in the chaotic atmospheric conditions. Brutus watched in growing fury as his fleet was slowly picked apart. 50 ships had been destroyed or disabled. The survivors were scattered across the planet, unable to coordinate their attacks in the constant storms. War Chief, his communications officer, reported, "We are receiving surrender demands from the humans." Surrender demands. Brutus roared. They dare to demand our surrender? Morrison's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional. War Chief Brutus, your fleet is defeated. Half your ships are destroyed and the rest are trapped. In our defensive grid, surrender now, and your surviving crews will be treated according to galactic law. Brutus stared at the communication device in disbelief. In his entire career, no one had ever offered him terms of surrender, not received them. You think you have one Deathworlder? Brutus snarled. We still have 100 ships. You have 100 ships that can't see, can't maneuver, and can't coordinate their attacks, Morrison replied. And we have a planet full of people who are very angry about what you did to the Zephrian colonies. To prove his point, another Krek ship disappeared in a flash of lightning. Then another. The human-controlled weather systems were methodically hunting down the scattered vessels. Brutus looked around his bridge at his terrified crew. For the first time in his life, the great war chief felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. What are your terms? He asked quietly. Morrison's response was immediate. Immediate withdrawal from Zephrian space. Full reparations for the colonies you destroyed. And a promise that the Kreks Empire will never again attack a world under human protection. The communication channel fell silent. Brutus stared at the storm-covered planet below, where lightning flashed constantly and his mighty fleet was being systematically destroyed by creatures from a death world who fought like demons. Greed, he said finally, the word tasting like poison in his mouth. As the surviving Krek ships began their retreat, Morrison stood in the command center watching them go. Around him, humans and Zephrians worked together, coordinating the cleanup and rescue operations. Elder Vexthan approached Morrison, his 4 eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and something that might have been fear. Captain, the old Zephrian said, you have saved our world. But watching you fight, it was terrifying. You used our own planet as a weapon. Morrison nodded. That's what humans do. We adapt. We use what we have, turn disadvantages into advantages. The Kreks called you Deathworlders, Vexen said quietly. Now I understand why. Morrison looked Out at the clearing skies, where the last of the Krek ships were disappearing into the distance. We're not monsters, Elder. We're just very good at protecting the things we care about. 3 weeks after the battle, War Chief Brutus stood before the High Council of the Krek's Empire on their homeworld of Drakmor. The council chamber was a massive hall carved from black stone, with seats arranged like a coliseum. 50 of the most powerful Krek's leaders sat in judgment, their metal teeth gleaming in the red light. High Overlord Vex, the supreme leader of the Krek's Empire, leaned forward on his throne. He was ancient by Krek standards, his gray skin covered in ritual, scars that marked his countless victories. His voice was like grinding stone. Explain to us, War Chief, how you lost half our grand fleet to a single ship of unknown aliens in a world of plant-eating weaklings. Brutus kept his eyes on the floor. In Krek's culture, a failed war chief usually ended up as dinner for the council. He had to choose his words carefully. High Overlord, these humans are not like any species we have encountered before, come from what they call a death world. Everything about them is designed for war. All species think they are warriors, snarled Councilmember Crix. What makes these humans different? Brutus looked up, his small black eyes reflecting the memory of that terrible battle.
Out there, yeah.
They do not fight like warriors, Overlord. They fight. Like the planet itself is their weapon. They turned the storms against us. They made the very air our enemy. They fought with the fury of creatures who have spent their entire existence fighting for survival. The council chamber fell silent. The Kreks had built their empire by attacking peaceful civilizations. They had never faced a species that treated warfare as a science, and their technology, asked High Overlord Vex. Primitive by our standards, but they used it in ways we could not predict. They took the Zephrian weather control systems and turned them into weapons of mass destruction. They used the planet's own atmosphere as a battlefield advantage. Brutus paused, remembering the lightning strikes that had torn through his ships like they were made of paper. High Overlord, I recommend we avoid human space entirely. The suggestion caused an uproar among the council members. Krek's empire had never retreated from any species before. You suggest we flee from a single ship? Roared Councilmember Grix. We have thousands of vessels. And they destroyed 100 of our best ships with 24 crew members, Brutus replied. What? Do you think they could do with a real fleet? Meanwhile, aboard the New Horizon, now permanently stationed in orbit around Kepler 442b, Captain Jake Morrison was dealing with problems of a different kind. His small ship had become the unofficial embassy between humanity and the galaxy, and every day brought new challenges. Captain Danny West called from the communications station. We're receiving another distress signal. This one is from the Altarian Republic. They say the Kreks are attacking their outer colonies. Morrison rubbed his temples. This was the 5th distress call they had received in 3 weeks. Word of humanity's victory over the Kreks had spread. Across the galaxy, faster than light speed. Put them through, Morrison said. The main screen showed a tall, elegant alien with silver skin and large blue eyes. The creature spoke in a musical voice similar to the Zephrians, but with more urgency. Human, vessel, this is Ambassador Zara of the Altarian Republic. We have heard of your victory over the Krek's Empire. Our people are under attack. We beg for your assistance. Morrison looked around the bridge at his tired crew.
Oh.
They had been responding to emergency calls for weeks, and they were only one ship. Dr. Amy Watson looked exhausted from treating refugees. Ryan Cole had dark circles under his eyes from constant tactical planning. Ambassador Morrison said carefully, We want to help, but we are only 24 people with one ship. We cannot protect every world in the galaxy. The alien's expression became desperate. But you defeated the Kreks. You are the Deathworlders. Surely you can help us. After ending the transmission, Morrison called a meeting in the ship's small conference room. His senior staff gathered around the table, looking as tired as he felt. We have a problem, Morrison said. Half the galaxy wants our protection, and the other half is terrified of us. We're getting requests for help from dozens of species, but we're also getting warnings from others telling us to stay away from their space. Dr. Watson leaned back in her chair. It's not surprising. We've changed the balance of power in the galaxy. For the first time in decades, someone has proven That the Krex can be defeated, but at what cost? Asked Lisa Parker. I've been monitoring galactic communications. Some species are calling us saviors. Others are calling us a new threat that's potentially worse than the Krex. Ryan Cole pulled up a tactical display. Captain, I've been analyzing the intelligence. Reports. There are at least 6 other aggressive species in this galaxy that operate like the Krex, the Vorthan Syndicate, the Shadow Clans, the Hive Collective. If they think we're a threat, they might unite against us. Morrison stared at the display, thinking about Earth. His homeworld had no idea that their first contact with aliens had resulted in humanity. Becoming a major player in galactic politics, Danny, open a channel to Earth Command. Priority 1. Morrison ordered. It took several hours for the transmission to reach Earth and for Admiral Kate Sullivan's response to come back. When her face appeared on the screen, she looked older than Morrison remembered. Captain Morrison, I've been reading your reports. The President wants to know if we're at war with half the galaxy. Morrison smiled grimly. Not yet, Admiral. But we might be soon. The situation here is complicated. We saved one species, defeated an empire, and now everyone wants to know what humanity plans to do next. What do you recommend? Sullivan asked. Morrison had been thinking about this question for weeks. We need more ships, Admiral. And we need a clear policy about when and how we intervene in galactic conflicts. Right now, every species thinks we're either their salvation or their doom. Over the following months, things began to change. Earth sent additional ships to the Kepler 442 system. Ambassador Helen Foster arrived to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Zephrians and other species. The small human presence in the galaxy began to grow, but the real change was in how other species viewed conflict. The Krex Empire, once the terror of the galaxy, became cautious and careful. They still attacked some worlds, but they avoided any system that had requested human protection. Other aggressive species took notice. The Vorthan Syndicate canceled a planned invasion of the peaceful Morani system after the Morani sent a message, saying they were seeking human alliance. The Shadow Clans began to avoid sectors where human ships had been seen. Elder Vexton stood with Captain Morrison on the observation deck of one of the floating cities, watching human and Zephrian. Children play together in the gardens. The young ones had adapted to each other much faster than the adults. Captain Vexton said, "When we sent out that distress call, we never imagined it would change the entire galaxy." Morrison nodded. "We didn't expect it either. We were just doing what humans do. We help people who need help." "And now?" Vexton asked. "What happens now that the galaxy knows about the Deathworlders?" Morrison watched a human child teaching a young Zephrian how to climb a tree, something that would have terrified the peaceful aliens just months ago. Now we figure out how to be both protectors and neighbors. It's not going to be easy. The other side of the galaxy, War Chief Brutus, received new orders from the High Council. The Krex Empire was restructuring its expansion plans. Worlds under human protection were marked as forbidden territory. For the first time in the Empire's history, they were acknowledging limits to their power. Brutus looked at the star charts, showing human-protected space.
Ow.
It was growing every week as more species requested alliance with the Deathworlders. The communications officer Brutus ordered, "Send a message to all fleet commanders. New standing order. Any ship that encounters human vessels is to withdraw immediately. Do not engage. Do not provoke. The humans are not prey." The order was distributed throughout the Krex fleet within hours. Similar orders were being sent by other aggressive species across the galaxy. The age of easy conquest was truly over. Back on Kepler 442b, Morrison received another transmission from Admiral Sullivan. This time she was smiling. "Captain, the United Nations has voted to establish the Galactic Protection Initiative. You're being promoted to Admiral and given command of the new fleet. Your mission is to protect innocent species and maintain peace in your sector of the galaxy." Morrison looked around at his crew, who had become the first humans to make contact. With alien life, they were tired, but they were also proud. They had done something no human had ever done before. They had made humanity's first impression on the galaxy a positive one. "Understood, Admiral," Morrison replied. We'll do our best to make humanity proud. As the transmission ended, Morrison heard Danny West calling from the communications station. Admiral, we're receiving another distress signal. This one is from a species called the Calarian Union. They say the Hive Collective is attacking their homeworld. Morrison smiled and stood up. Ryan, plot a course for Calarian space. Lisa, prepare the fleet for combat operations. Dr. Watson, start researching Calarian biology. Looks like we have work to do.